Welcome back to Florida Pediatric TV. Sam Bell and I are here, and we're filming this on the last day of the third week of the 2013 legislative session. And wow, a lot has happened this week. Let's start with the Affordable Care Act Medicaid Expansion discussion, which has now become the Negron proposal.
Okay. Well, last week, at the end of the week, we felt discouraged because both the House and the Senate had voted in committees not to go ahead with the Medicaid expansion for the newly eligibles. Our hopes have risen this week because Senator Joe Negron has offered a proposal that passed out of the Senate Appropriations Committee yesterday that would, in fact, take down the federal money, the 100% funding for the roughly 1 million newly eligible Medicaid recipients. The concept of the bill is to place these eligibles under the existing Healthy Kids Corporation so that those persons would use their Medicaid funding to buy coverage under an HMO under the auspices of the Healthy Kids Corporation. There are many good things in this bill and problems that we as child advocates need to address going forward, but the good news is that at least in the Senate we have new life breathed into the idea of expanding Medicaid to the newly eligibles.
And Sam, another issue that pediatricians have been interested in was that of getting epinephrine auto-injectors into the schools in the event of anaphylaxis, and I understand that a vehicle has finally been found to do that.
That's correct. Yesterday, an amendment was placed on the Senate school safety bill that provided for EpiPens to be in the schools and for training to be done for personnel there in the schools to use the pen. This morning, that same amendment was placed on the House school safety bill, so that issue is moving in both chambers.
Very good. There's an issue about salary parity for child protection teams. Where does that stand?
Well, I think the good news generally for funding is that this week the House and Senate Appropriations Committees were given their allocations for money to be used in funding all of government. Because our economy has improved, the allocations were much better than in years past, and so it looks like generally there will be money to fund many of the things that we're concerned about. That money for the parity for the child protective teams is in the mix, and we will be working to see if that funding can be provided.
Now, one of the issues we discussed last week was the kid care presumptive eligibility. Where does that stand?
Well, unfortunately, kid care presumptive eligibility and the eligibility for the legal aliens, both of those bills have not moved in the process. However, the Negron bill, which we discussed earlier, will provide an excellent vehicle. So we plan to attempt to amend both the presumptive eligibility and the eligibility for legal aliens onto that bill when we have an opportunity to do that next week.
Very good. Now, what about texting while driving? I understand that's moving.
Well, texting while driving was really moving well in the House, and I think it will pass the House. We've hit a bump in the road in the Senate. A powerful senator who chairs the committee where the bill now resides has for the moment been unwilling to hear the bill. A lot of us are working with him to try to convince him that that would be a good thing for him to do.
And what about booster seats?
Unfortunately, I think that booster seats are probably a long shot at this point in the session.
Another issue we discussed last week is foster care normalization. Where do we stand with that?
Foster care normalization is also flying through the House, and I think may well go to the governor this next week. This, of course, is a bill that provides for some kind of normal activity for foster children and children in foster homes, giving them the opportunity to participate in athletic events, learn how to drive a car, go to the beach, things that normal children would do, and it does provide some limits on liability for foster parents that allow this type of activity.
Now, pulse oximetry to detect critical congenital heart disease, the bills didn't go anywhere so far, but perhaps there's funding and some proviso?
That's correct. There is a sort of a negative attitude in the minds of the House in particular to do nothing that looks like a mandate. And that, in their mind, was a mandate. But we did meet with the Speaker last week, and he was supportive of the idea of getting $206,000 into the budget to go to the DOH to cover the costs of tracking and follow-through for children with congenital heart disease that are detected using that process.
Now, last week we talked about sudden unexpected infant death, and I believe that bill was amended to include the language, permissive language for child protection teams.
That's correct. I testified this morning in the House committee on that, and that has been a difficult effort because it deals with, as the title indicates, infant death. And we've had a number of parents whose children had died with the SIDS situation, and they were very concerned about the prosecutorial nature of the bill. We have assured them that that's not the purpose, and I think what the bill does from our point of view is to provide that the child protective teams are a part of the process, both in training and in investigation. And the bill did pass today, its last committee in the House, and is now on the special order calendar in the Senate, so that's really moving along.
Very good. Another item important to pediatricians is the self-attestation form as it relates to the Medicaid physician fee increase. As of this moment, no form has been released by Florida, and our understanding is that Florida is still waiting for federal CMS approval, although all the information we can gather from the American Academy of Pediatrics suggests that they really don't need approval from the feds. Payment can't go forward until the feds approve the Florida Medicaid State Plan Amendment. Those two items go hand in hand, and the state plan amendment has not yet been approved either. There are, I understand, 3 states in the nation who now have started paying at the higher Medicare rates. Those 3 states were able to get the self-attestation form done and the state plan amendment approved. So we will continue to update you on that item. Another issue, Sam, is the expansion of Medicaid reform statewide. Where does that stand?
Well, I think we ought to clarify for those that don't follow it closely that there's a difference between Medicaid expansion, which we talked about earlier, that will cover newly eligibles, and this is under the ACA. So we talked about that. What we're talking about now is the statewide Medicaid managed care that would cover those people who are currently eligible under Title 19. The proposal that has been that was adopted 2 sessions ago by the legislature to create a statewide managed care where all the Medicaid people would go into an HMO, that has been awaiting a waiver approval. And I talked with Congresswoman Kathy Castor yesterday, and she told me that several of the members of the congressional delegation had talked to Cindy Mann, who is with the federal government that's over this issue, indicating that waiver is probably going to come down within the next few days. One of the things that was encouraging to us was the fact that Cindy Mann particularly acknowledged the work of the Florida Pediatric Society and said that our message and request for child-friendly provisions in the waiver had been heard. So we're hoping that we will see the benefits of that effort, and we want to thank all of the members of the Florida Pediatric Society for their support in this effort.
Finally, let me give you an update on the Medicaid lawsuit. Last week when we filmed, I told you that there was a hearing going on in Miami that day. Indeed, the state moved to make the physician fee increase part of our Medicaid lawsuit a moot issue in view of the Affordable Care Act physician fee increase. Fortunately, Judge Jordan denied that motion and indicated that the physician fee increase under the Affordable Care Act is only for 2 years, and the state would have a very heavy burden proving that our lawsuit should be moot in that regard. So we're still waiting on the judge to rule on all of the other issues, the other specialists who would be covered under the lawsuit who aren't covered under the Affordable Care Act, the dentists, and all of the administrative barriers such as switching. But at least good news that the judge did rule in our favor on that particular item. That's it for this week. Sam and I will be back next week with a further update. In the meantime, let me know if you have any specific questions.